Good afternoon. For the next session on selection and surgical planning of the laparoscopic liver donor, I would like to invite Dr. K.R. Vasudevan, who is the Director of Department of Liver Transplant at PSRI Hospital, and Dr. Puneet Dargan, who is Senior Consultant, Department of Liver Transplant at Fortis Chennai, as chairpersons.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is said that without a route map, it is not possible to reach your destined destination. So now I would invite Dr. Vishal Chaurasia, who's a senior, versatile, and a gifted surgeon at the Fortis Group of Hospitals in NCR, to tell us about his surgical and patient selection plan in the next few minutes. Thank you.
Uh, Very good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Dr. Puneet. Well, as we all are aware that we will be discussing step-by-step laparoscopic surgery steps. So to put up as a prelogue, I would like to put up the case that we'll be discussing in the subsequent steps. Along with that, I would like to touch upon the basic selection criteria which we use for selecting the case for donor hepatectomies. So this is the basic donor selection slide that we all are aware of, that he should be a family member within the age group of 18 to 15 years of age and should have a compatible blood group and overall should be a very healthy as on medical evaluation. Although with newer techniques of incompatible AVO liver transplant, the same or compatible blood group might be not be that relevant, but still in majority of cases, we do prefer that a compatible blood group is always a preferable idea. However, the basic premise or the basic the idea of lab donor surgery have probably been evolved out of the three basic emotional mechanisms, be it the empathy towards your patients, be it as a little bit of compensation to the altruistic donor, or to achieve a surgical high, which is the largest epitome of laparoscopic or liver surgery. So it's either in a combination or in exclusion, these emotions have given somewhere rise to the development and progress of laparoscopic liver surgery. And since the very purpose of development of lap liver surgery was arise out of these emotions, so as Dr. Vivek has previously also mentioned that exclusion criteria should ideally not hold promise in the near future. But traditionally, yes, of course, there will be hitches for every program with regards to variable vascular or biliary anatomy, whether it's because of the graft volume. Many centers do not prefer laparoscopic surgery if the graft volume is more than say 900 grams, or based on graft type, like a right posterior sector graft might not be a very good option to proceed at, or in the presence of any developmental anomalies like left-sided gallbladder or a right-sided round ligament to be precise, or in cases of type D portal vein, it could be very tricky to offer laparoscopic surgery at the inset. But this does not undermines the role of exclusion criteria, because exclusion criteria are very important, especially at the early part of the learning curve, not only to avoid early disappointments, but also to avoid accidents. But these, as experience accumulates, these factors might lose their relevance in the once you achieve and plateau in your learning. So these factors might not be that relevant. So to start with, whenever a new program is started, there can be relative exclusions in terms of variable anatomies, like presence of multiple inferior veins, multiple arteries or portal veins, multiple ducts, or a complex hilar anatomy, or larger liver volume, say more than 800 or 900 grams can be a little bit, centers might be having a hitch to operate on these patients as pure laparoscopic donor hepatectomy. But exclusions can be discriminatory, but although it not ought to be. So to cover up these you have to keep and the basic idea of development of laparoscopic surgery was to ultimate epitome is to apply it to everybody. Okay, so but there should be a very clear balance between universal applicability and patient safety, which should be maintained and should not be compromised at any level. But as we all know that to do this, you need to evolve. You need to evolve your techniques. You need to evolve strategies, because it is only with evolving knowledge and experience that you can exclude the exclusions. Okay, but evolution do comes at a price of huge experience in the specialty, be it surgery or anatomy, and keen observations and understanding of the science, especially relevant to the laparoscopic surgeries, are the mechanics and the optics. And of course, the dedication and the sheer patience. And last but not the least, the conviction that it can be done, because unless you see it, you cannot do it. So various evolving strategies are important, not only to overcome your own handicap, but to overcome the anomalies, overcoming the technical limitations that happen in laparoscopic donors, to prevent complications or accidents, and overall to improve overall results and make it comparable to open donor hepatectomy. You need to evolve, continuously evolve and evolve. I would like to cover a few strategies that we do have evolved over time to cover up certain anatomical problems, like for inferior hepatic veins, which usually cause a shadow effect because of their obstruction. The dissection caudal to inferior hepatic veins is very difficult. So you need to overcome it with a flexible camera head, which offers a very good technical advancement. What we call it as a peep over fence dissection. You just need to peep over the vein, caudal to the vein, to dissect the remaining of the IVC, which is otherwise not possible. If you don't have a flexible camera head, then the strategy has to be different. With a rigid camera, you need to progressively keep on dissecting the triangle of IVC to expose it in a way that you keep on raising the altitude. We can call it as a progressive altitude raising mechanism or dissection. Similarly, for bile ducts, we have evolved various technical strategies like Hyler plate first incision, and especially in cases of type 2 bile duct division, we decide on whether to loop it as a single duct or a different duct based on the angle between the two ducts. If the angle between the two ducts is less than 45 degrees, it is not sensible to loop them separately. It's always better to loop them as a single duct, because otherwise you can injure the two ducts. So these technical advancements or knowledge, or this comes with your gradual experience that you accumulate over time. And if required, we are very open. If still the anatomy is not clear, then the best option should be to free cut and suture the ducts. So you can very well see a suture line, which can be very well replicated like as in the open surgery. So if you need to evolve, we need to be very well acclimatized with the suturing and the suturing technique as well. So as of now, as a departmental criteria for lab donor, we do not offer any exclusion criteria. All donors who consent for laparoscopy are taken for laparoscopic donor hepatectomy. Few exclusions criteria which relatively we follow as of now, but we never know yet in near future it might become redundant, are that we had not yet operated on a right posterior sector graft laparoscopically. And secondly, any incidence of type D portal vein with or without left-sided gallbladder. I am specifically mentioning this because we have successful series of operating on these patients and retrieving the graft successfully and via the open technique. So we have not yet encountered these anomalies after that, so that we can see whether we can offer this laparoscopically or not. So with this, I would like to proceed with the case which will follow, which will form the base for the next session, next interactive video session. So the case, the video of which will be shown and in detail in the next session is of a 43-year-old Syrian female with a BMI of 28.95, who was the wife of the recipient. She was medically and surgically fine, was a multipara with regular cycles. There was no addiction for her. Her biochemical profile was completely normal as per the what is required of a donor. As we can see, she had normal thyroid function test, viral markers were negative. She was immune for CMV. Cardiopulmonary and gynecological evaluation was completely normal. And coming up to what is important for liver perspective, she had a liver attenuation index of +13, which is perfectly fine. The arterial anatomy was replaced RHA, which was arising from superior mesenteric artery. Portal vein was type A, that is standard. Venous anatomy, MHV anatomy was pretty standard. There were no inferior accessory veins. CT volumetry shows a right lobe graft without MHV to weighing about 964 grams, which was giving a GRWR of 1.07 and remnant was 40%. The graft plant was right lobe without MHV. As per departmental policy also, we don't prefer to take MHV with the graft. The MRCP revealed a type 1 biliary anatomy. The surgery planned, as we know, is pure laparoscopic donor hepatectomy. The graft planned was right without MHV. So the subsequent surgery will be discussed in the videos, which are as ILBS videos, which are very well available in the program in set. And we'll be discussing these as different topics like patient and port position, liver mobilization, IVC and retrohepatic dissection, port R dissection, liver parenchymal transaction, and division of bile duct and hyalal plate. All but the first session, all but the first video, that is the patient and port position, is of a different patient because somehow we could not get the patient at port position video of the same patient. But before proceeding to the video session, let me just conclude my case presentation with the surgical outcome, because we might not get the time to reveal that in the end. The graft weight, which was retrieved, was 926 grams, which was about 38 grams less than the predicted value. The warm ischemia time from arterial clipping was 5 minutes and 10 seconds. Blood loss was approximately 800 ml and no transfusion was given, either of blood or blood products. Camera port to graft out time was around 245 minutes and total surgical time was 280 minutes. The post-operatively, the donor recovered very well and was discharged. We can see the bilirubin on day 7 was 0.038. The peak SGOT-PT were 114 and 105 on day 1. Post-op recovery of the recipient, because as rightly Dr. Vivek mentioned that it's of no use of doing donor hepatectomy if we can't replicate the recipient very well. So we can very well see that the recovery parameters of the recipient's bilirubin was 2 on day 16. It actually, there was an increase on day 12 because of insufficient immunosuppression, which settled down with increasing the dose of the CNIs. And the maximum OTPT rise was around 273 and PT rise was 214 on day 3, after which is declined subsequently. This is the outcome pictures of the donor. Both donor and recipient had uneventful recovery, and donor was discharged successfully on 7th POD and recipient on 16th POD in stable condition. With this, I would like to conclude my talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vishal, for giving us a brief outline of the patient selection and the roadmap for pure laparoscopic donor hepatectomy. Dr. Vivek, will you like to add something before we go on to our next segmental video presentations?
Not really. Very nice presentation, Dr. Vishal. I think you highlighted the core of doing pure laparoscopic donor hepatectomy, that core is emotion from the surgical team. I really like that slide saying that somewhere, somehow we have hidden zeal of making benefit to the donors. I think that is where that is the inspiration of doing pure laparoscopic donor hepatectomy. And as you rightly mentioned that many centers who are embarking on their journey to pure laparoscopic donor hepatectomy, they should start by strict selection criteria, mentorship. They should visit programs who are already doing it, so that the relearning becomes simple. It should not be learning again and again and again and again. We should pass on the knowledge to people who actually want to do it. And third thing is, of course, once we have bits and parts of knowledge about how to use QSA in laparoscopy, how to use energy devices, how to mobilize, then of course we can directly apply all these knowledge combined together to laparoscopic donor hepatectomy.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any questions from Dr. Vasu?
Yeah, Shal, that's a very nice presentation. For the benefit of people who would be embarking on laparoscopy, can
Yeah.
you kind of allude to the fact that which are the problems you tend to tackle first along your journey in the selection criteria or in technicalities, whichever way, and which are the ones to leave for the last?
Look, actually, what we have been doing, what we had a very long journey with laparoscopy. Actually, initially we started the biggest problems that I think which is common to all and which comes to the mind is how to lift the liver, which is the biggest problem. So initially we also didn't had any know-how about how to do it. So we started off somewhere with a hybrid kind of approach. This subsequently, gave up proper learning, and then we visited the Korean center, Korean University, and then obviously gradually our learning had improved. Selection-wise, from the very beginning, we were not very keen on selecting the patients based on anatomy because we didn't want to lose learning from any of the patients, because we followed whatever steps we could make use of. Suppose if we had a patient who had given consent for say donor laparoscopic donor hepatectomy, and which had a complicated hepatovenous anatomy, then we would like to go ahead and perform maybe portal dissection for that patient. So at least we can make use of the opportunity to learn the portal dissection in that patient. Okay, because obviously that any dangerous steps, usually if for a beginning program, I would like to suggest that the most dangerous step in donor hepatectomy is the IVC, because it is one step that you need. There's no way, if something happens, it can also be dangerous to the patients, and you need to convert. There is no way you can proceed without opening or without converting. If there is a bleeding, okay, you might open, but still this is the most dangerous step, and which can be having serious consequences for the patients. So IVC has to be very precise, which is one step which is very important. And I don't want to say that you can keep it for the end to learn. Don't lose the opportunity for learning whenever we can learn. Okay, but we should not be very much optimistic without a reason. Obviously, we should learn now, since it's no more an experimental procedure now. Very well, a lot of centers are doing it. So it's always good to adopt practices what have been successfully established by the masters. And that's what have helped us also in proceeding to the level that we are today. So I think that should give you what you have been asking for, Dr. Vasu.
If I get it right, keep trying, be safe.
Yeah.
Don't leave anything for the end.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.